We are delighted to welcome you today to listen to Sri Gopalkrishna Gandhi and Bankar Sanjeet Roy in conversation. Apart from other associations over the years, they met as fellow students at St. Stephen's College in Delhi University in the 1960s. Sri Gandhi has visited Barefoot College, Tilonia, and has a continuing friendship with Bankar Roy over the years. Many of us in the audience have also been a part of the 50-year journey of SWRC Barefoot and are gathered here to celebrate the event with them. I invite the communicators of Tilonia to set the tone to welcome you in the Tilonia tradition, to give you a glimpse of the magic and energy they have evolved and spread for half a century. I request Ramnivas, Satyanarayan, Moti, Hemnath, Ramlal, and Bilaji with Shankar Singh and Ramlal, the alumni who started it all way back, to begin the evening.
हर दिल्ली सो रे दिल्ली सो हमें दिल्ली सो रे दिल्ली सो बंकर आयो जीवन गाँव में बितायो दिल्ली सो बंकर आयो जीवन गाँव में बितायो ओ बैठने में आयो सोच गांधी जी की लायो ओ बैठने में आयो सोच गांधी जी की लायो ओ मेघराज जी आयो ओ लोगों ने बुलायो ओ मेघराज जी आयो ओ लोगों ने बुलायो ए लोग गाँव का आया सेंटर गाँव में खुलाया ए लोग गाँव का आया सेंटर गाँव में खुलाया सेंटर सीखे और सिखावे हुनर हाथ को बढ़ावे सेंटर सीखे और सिखावे हुनर हाथ को बढ़ावे तकनीकी सरल बनावे देश दुनिया ने बतावे तकनीकी सरल बनावे देश दुनिया ने बतावे दिल्ली सुरे दिल्ली सु अबे दिल्ली सुरे दिल्ली सु
I call upon Aruna Roy of the Right to Information movement to introduce Sri Gopalkrishna Gandhi. We are very happy to have him with us, an eminent Indian public intellectual, writer, academic and former governor who has graced many public offices with dignity and integrity. Aruna.
It's not often that you get the pleasure of introducing a lifelong friend. And I'm really happy and honored to be here to introduce Gopal. We met in 1968 as fellows in the IAS Academy, but that was only a beginning. We've been friends all our lives, and I'm really happy he's here today to share his views on what he calls working for a better life. He has been part of the Delhi University group, the batches of 1967 and 68, which saw a very much better India. We were friends, we had no compunction in speaking our minds, we did various things, we talked about different concepts of the world, but Gopal in all his life, as a public intellectual, has spoken out with his measured tone, offending nobody, but never veering from the truth as he saw it. It has been an honor to be his friend, honor to have walked the path with him, and with Bankar, with whom he has been friends and he is known for over 50 years. It's a pleasure to have him talk with Bankar about their separate journeys. As we all know, we all lead very different lives with slightly skewed or different nuanced perspectives. But nevertheless, having understood that differences in dissent make a democratic polity, we converse with pleasure, with happiness and compassion. I'm really looking forward to hearing this conversation between Gopalkrishna Gandhi and Bankar Roy. Welcome, Gopal, and thank you very, very much for accepting this invitation to come here. As part of the alumni, I'm here because I'm part of the alumni of Barefoot College, and now I work elsewhere, but I'm really happy to see you here today. Thank you.
I now request Shri Abhimanyu Singh, President of the SWRC Barefoot Board and a former civil servant, to briefly introduce Bankar Roy.
Hi everybody. It's unfair that you can see me and I can't see anybody. Anyway, introduce Bankar briefly is a huge challenge. Anyway, I'll try and do it as best as I can. In my view, Bankar is one of the icons of civil society in post-independent India. His philosophy, his strategy, his leadership has survived many challenges, hurdles and difficulties. And we are very fortunate that he and Aruna and all the supporters of Telonia who are here today can celebrate 50th anniversary of Telonia in his august presence. But a lot of people, I think, know him and yet they don't. So I'll try and answer the question briefly, who the hell is Bankar Roy? Because I am friends enough with him to talk informally. Bankar comes from a very privileged background. He was Sanjeev Roy. I don't know exactly when he became Bankar. But he studied at Doon School and St. Stephen's, and he earned colours in 3 sports in Stephen's, which is rare. It's like the Oxford Blue, cricket, tennis and squash, and then continued to remain national champion of squash for 6 consecutive years till he retired because no one in the country or in the continent could beat him. And at that time, Pakistan had very good squash players too. I wondered often what qualities he carried from those sports to what he became, and I think a large part of it is knowing how to win, knowing how to lose, and taking both in the same stride, never getting flustered, never giving up, and always providing that spark of inspiration to a generation of youth who came and went from Telonia. And so what happened to the privileged Bankar Roy, who gave up all privileges and gave up the prospects of a glittering corporate or diplomatic or administrative career and settled to dig wells in a remote part of Rajasthan, then even now. Arid, drought, unwelcoming terrain which he made home, and against all odds, as I say. People used to ask the question, so how long will you be there? He wanted to leave the TB sanatorium for his office, and the chief secretary said, I'll do it for 1 year because I'm sure you'll disappear by then. Anil Bodia, who was the legendary collector of Ajmer, summoned him to say, hey young man, what the hell are you doing in these rural areas? Police is suspicious. But he carried on regardless, and there are stories where people describe him coming with drilling machines, going down wells, very dangerous, digging, coming out, and having the pleasure of having that well have water again. And so he was called in local Rajasthani, यहाँ पर काफी राजस्थान के भी लोग हैं, बांद्रा or monkey. He endeared himself to the community at large, and then you will hear from him what happened. But there are basically very few people who have lived and worked and slept and eaten in the framework of Gandhian philosophy. He is frugal, he is simple, he has no material possessions, he has no power or privilege, but he has the kind of influence which very few people have in India and abroad. I have seen him here, I have seen him addressing international gatherings at UNESCO, and always followed by a standing ovation. So we are here to salute his memory, his leadership, and the tremendous work done by Barefoot College in so many areas which now define the Sustainable Development Goals which have been adopted globally. If there is an international or global ambassador or such a position is created for the Sustainable Development Goals, it should be Bankar Roy. Thank you.
floor, Gopal.
It is an honor and a joy to be here today for many reasons. And I'll start with the customary question, am I audible enough? When somebody, I remember, asked this question, am I audible? And the audience said yes, he said, I'm so sorry. It's a joy and an honor, as I said, for many reasons. But I will start with the most obvious one, which is that being at an event at which Bankar and Aruna are both present together is such a rare coincidence that I am still in some disbelief. Am I seeing them together on the stage really, or? There were many things which Abhimanyu-ji said, but one of them has entered my subconscious, I think for all time, which is, he said, Bankar is austere. Bankar has influence. He's simple, he's austere, he has influence. So it is very good that for reasons of contrast, there should be somebody like me on the stage who is not simple, not austere, has no influence. I am not saying this out of modesty. I am saying this because I know myself. And I must give in to the temptation of saying, when it comes to modesty, the last word on it has been said by Golda Meir as Prime Minister of Israel, when one of her ministers was talking about his being a very small person. So she interrupted him and said, don't be so humble, you're not that great. When I saw Bankar in college, by which I mean St. Stephen's College in Delhi, very arrogantly called by all Stephanians as college, as if it's the only college in the world. When I saw Bankar in college for the first time, I knew, of course, that he was from Doon School, which made me rather disheartened, because there are many kinds of Stephanians, but we would like to believe, by we I mean those who studied in the school he has been and the school I have been, which I just described, two kinds of Stephanians. Stephanians who have been to Doon School and Stephanians who have been to modern school. Modern school in Delhi was known by a jingle. Modern school, Gulab ka phool, naye teacher, naye rule. The best thing about modern school was its Gulab ke phool. But in this jingle remained a truth about modern school, which is that it was the flower of a nationalist fervor, financed by very patriotic princes of industry and trade based around Delhi, who knew that there were challenges to be met, but who also knew that they had limitations. Doon School had a completely different vintage. So I knew Bankar was from Doon School. But before that, Bankar and I are born in the same year, I discovered, 1945. But Bankar decided to join college a year later. So when he joined college, again, this is something which I can't but share today. When this gentleman strode into St. Stephen's College, all those who were in St. Stephen's College, glued to Miranda House, the college for girls, lost all hope of success. Bankar was Miranda House's idol. And in this very hall some time ago, Ramachandra Guha said something about Girish Karnad. He said, every woman in town was in love with Girish Karnad. And a guy did not have to be gay in order to be also in love with Girish Karnad. Everyone in college was in awe of Bankar Roy. And then, what happens? Here is a person who is tops in sports. He is tops in everything that anyone can be tops in. But he is different from what one expects him to be. A kind of new trajectory is opening before him, and one doesn't know what Bankar is really about. He is typical in the sense he has everything that one would want to be, and yet he is so very Bankar. There is Sandeep, there is Bankar. There is Sandeep, there is Bankar. Sandeep, Bankar. Bankar, and Sandeep disappears. '62, '63, '64, '65. And Bihar looms into the horizon. I knew this dimly. Just got completely confirmed a little while ago. It's been a while, so it needed confirmation. The worst imaginable drought occurred in Bihar that year. Can we have the hall lights all the time? It's nice to have the hall lights on. We are so used to the masses being in the darkness. And lights being on the street. Bihar. And two persons we know disappear into Bihar. Bankar Roy and the mountaineer who is later going to become an Everester, Suman Dubey. I was then working for a short-lived journal called Weekend Review. They carried a detailed story on the Bihar drought. Jayaprakash was at the heart of relief, just as 30 years prior to that, 31 years prior to that, the great Bihar earthquake took place. Rajendra Prasad, who was then in jail and was released, became a turbine of activity and raised funds for the Bihar earthquake. It was called the Bihar earthquake, really I think the hypocenter, not only the epicenter, but the hypocenter was in Nepal. Rajendra Prasad became that. And he raised a sum of money which made the British Raja's sums of money raised look pitifully small. So this conversation is about Bankar, and it is tangentially but inextricably going to be about Aruna. But I don't want to now postpone my questions to Bankar, which will start with this. No comparisons are being made here. I'm not saying this name is like that name and these two names are like that name and Bankar, you belong to that. I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying that if in not far from Bihar, a certain prince left his palace to become a thinker, and a certain very prosperous barrister seeing what was happening to his community in Durban, started Phoenix. What is it that made you turn from the ridge on Delhi to Palamau, which was a little different from just the fact of the drought? What was it that made you move east?
Gopal, when I went to the famine in Bihar, it was quite a traumatic experience because I hadn't seen Bharat. I'd seen only India. And that really shook me to the core. So when I traveled with Suman and Brijraj Singh at that time, was also in St. Stephen's College. We traveled around all over Palamau and we saw hunger and starvation and death. For the first time, it was really very, very moving and shook me. And then I came back home and then I told my mother, I'd like to live and work in a village. Mother went into a coma because she couldn't understand why in 15 days in Bihar it made such a difference to me. I said, I've got the best education that I could possibly have. I want to give something back, something that was, whatever happened, whatever could happen, I would like to do something which would make a difference. So it wasn't that I read Mahatma Gandhi or I hadn't read Karl Marx. It was just something that made me feel that this was something that had to be done. And I thought I would do something which was not expected of me. And of course, certainly when we all got together in college and everyone kept on asking, what are you going to be? They said, oh, I want to be an ambassador, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a... I said, I want to be an unskilled laborer digging wells in Rajasthan. Which I did for 5 years. And that was when I was exposed to the most extraordinary knowledge, skills and wisdom that very poor people have in rural Rajasthan. Extraordinary traditional wisdom, skills, practical skills. And I said, why aren't we actually bringing all this knowledge, skills and wisdom into mainstream thinking? Very important, very relevant even today. So at that time, I was digging wells in Ajmer district. And one day I was coming out of a well and there was a policeman on top saying, you've been arrested. I said, what have I done? He said, you haven't answered summons and the collector's calling you. So in my bedraggled clothes, looking definitely like a driller, I went into the district collector's office. And then in my immaculate English, I asked the collector, what am I doing here? He said, oh, you speak English? I said, yes. My first encounter with Anil Bodia. And Anil Bodia then said, you want to do something in a village? There's a place which is a TB sanatorium, which is lying unused. Why don't you try and get it allotted to you and do some work there in Tilonia, in a village called Tilonia. As you know, it's not know-how but know-who that matters. So I used my influence, went to Sarkar, and at that time there was a mad chap who was the development commissioner called Vinod Pandey. Vinod Pandey said, you're from St. Stephen's College, you won't last a year, so take it for 1 year. You guys have no staying power. So take it for 1 year. I said, all right, I'll take it for a year. And then you give it back because you guys, you're not going to make it. You have no way that you have the stamina to be able to do this. So then I went to Rajasthan. So I went to this village, I went to this unused TB sanatorium in Tilonia. And of course, then I went to meet the people in the village. And in the village, they asked me, the elders asked me, "Are you running from the police?" I said, "No." "You didn't get a government job?" I said, "No." "You failed in your exam?" I said, "No." He said, "What are you doing here?" "What are you doing here?" I said, "I want to live and work in this village in Tilonia." And then they said something which stuck to me even at that time. He said, "There's one thing you must promise." He said, "You must not get anyone with a degree and qualification into your college." So it's probably the only college in India where if you have a master's and a PhD, you're disqualified to come. You have to be a dropout or a cop-out or a washout to come. I said, "All right, let's see if we can do that." I started with water. Of course, I was badly brought up, and so I went to the geologist and geophysicist. And I said, "Please try and find water for me." The old man said, "Look, why are you going to a geologist and geophysicist? Why didn't you get to a water diviner?" I said, "I don't know that these people existed." He said, "Yes, there's a water diviner." And at that time, there was a water diviner, a very famous water diviner from a Jesuit water diviner, old man. I saw him with his stick, and I was laughing at him. He said, "Come here." And he put his hand on my shoulder. He said, "Now you walk with the stick." I was looking very foolish. I said, "Now stop," and his stick went up like that. And he said, "Now bring it down." I couldn't bring it down. I said, "My God." He said, "Never laugh at things you don't know." Since then, I've always depended on water diviners to find me water, and they've always almost 90% proved right. I thought that I would like to start a college with a difference, where the influence, where the importance will be given to people who are working with their hands, rather than people who had fancy degrees and qualifications.
Uncle, that's one of the most inspiring things I've heard in a very long time. I don't mean just the last sentence, but the entire sequence, which is one of the most inspiring. And I'm saying this completely forgetting the fact that this is the 50th anniversary, a jubilee, for which congratulations. Completely forgetting that I am talking to you on stage, that there is an audience here. Just conversing with you and hearing this from you anywhere. Truly inspirational. And I know you're connecting water, which took you to an absence of water, which took you to Bihar. Water in Rajasthan, water demand. And to talk of poor people and their poverty after you've spoken of their knowledge, skills and wisdom. The complete absence of what may be called undirected and misdirected sentimentality about poverty. To see knowledge, skills and wisdom. And the gathering will forgive me for this. Part of my...
It's okay. I'm okay.
Part of my lack of austerity is my fascination for Hindi cinema. And I can't but recall today, it just comes to me. Some of you, my generation, would remember the film Guide. When I was teaching my class the other day, this subject came up. I asked the class, all very young, you just out of school. I said, you know, R.K. Narayan? Silence. No response. No, the Guide novel, film novel. You know, Devan? Yes. There is this song in the S.D. Burman song, Prem Dhawan's lyrics. Megha de, pani de, saya de. आंखें फाड़े दुनिया देखे, हाय रे तमाशा, हाय रे विश्वास मेरा, हाय मेरी आशा। अल्लाह मेघ दे, अल्लाह मेघ दे, पानी दे, साया दे दे, अल्लाह मेघ दे. Now, this is sorry for this inflection. The water divination story is exactly like that. And in this song, something which Hindi films used to do, connecting all the communities of India. It's not just Ishwar Allah Tere Naam, which is about A to Z, about the Creator. But it's Pani, connecting with Pani. I have strayed, I have digressed, but that is part of my life of austerity. Now, Bankar, I have to ask you. You've told us now in most inspiring terms how this great transition took place in your life. And before I come to Aruna, who in my mind is so central to everything that is happening around us today, was there any time when you felt you had made a mistake in the choices you had made?
By the time I started digging wells, I was unemployable. And so if it hadn't been for Aruna Roy around, I wouldn't have started the Barefoot College. So thank you very much. I had no salary, I didn't have any money, and Mrs. Roy was still in the IAS, and so her salary kept me alive and supportive and doing all the mad things I was doing. There was one quotation of Mark Twain which always stuck to me. He said, "Never let school interfere with your education." And that stuck to me. I thought I would start a Barefoot College where the whole issue of certification would be unimportant. The whole issue of paper degrees would be unimportant. And concentrate on the human being, the compassion, the tolerance, the patience, the humanity that we could identify in human beings, however poor, however disadvantaged. I think those are the people we were really looking for to start the Barefoot College. And it happened, so happened, that there was a group around when we started the Barefoot College who fit into that category. Didn't go to school and college, hadn't gone a formal education, and yet this was the stuff of rural Bharat, and how it is possible to identify them, mobilize them, apply them on services, basic services which they could provide to the community they came from. But there were some do's and don'ts. You would always get, whether you are 20 years in organization or you were just coming, you would get a minimum wage. No question of you getting more than a minimum wage. That we started, that was something which was non-negotiable. And you would be judged, your salary would go up and down by a set of criteria. Were you honest? Were you creative? Were you innovative? We gave 100 points, and the 3 points were only given to your educational qualification. I never ever thought, when this whole process was going through, that I made a mistake. Yes, there were ups and downs, and people kept on saying, "Oh, you failed." I said, there's no such thing as failure. It's something that didn't work out. There are many reasons why it didn't work out. But don't call it a failure. Thilonia is a place where you try crazy ideas, innovative ideas, something that you want to try on the ground. Make it work, doesn't matter. Try again. that sort of environment we managed to inculcate in all these people. And that gave them tremendous confidence to be able to try and do it, try and try again and make it work. And this was always in the back of my mind, that these people needed to prove themselves to the world outside. That just because you didn't have a degree or a qualification, it didn't make you inferior. It didn't make you less human being. It didn't brand you. It didn't make you feel that you had missed something. This was something which the whole organization had managed to imbibe in the whole working of the organization, I think. So we are working in the whole area of water, energy, medicine, education, women's empowerment. All of them in these areas are people who've been from the village, who've never gone through a formal education, and yet they have managed to produce this result. When His Holiness the Dalai Lama came to Tilonia, and he came and saw what we were doing, he said something very profound. He said, now that you've shown the Barefoot College working in practice, let's see if the experts can make it work in theory. We are doing everything wrong. The classical development planners cannot figure out what we've done. But the impact is there, cannot deny it.
Thank you, Banka, for that most cliched response to this question. Did you ever think you'd made a mistake? It's a very college magazine type of question that I put to you. But how wonderfully you answered. I want to now fast forward a little and say that very happy to see M.G. Devasahayam here, who was also with us in the academy at the same time as Aruna and I were in the academy. He did a very distinguished military service, has a higher seniority than Aruna and I had in the service, but year of training was the same. I was posted in a small division of South Arcot district called Dindivanam. Aruna was in Union Territory cadre, she was in Pondicherry. And my wife and I visited Aruna, and my mother was also there, and Aruna was in a very small house, two-storied house, and I could see from our conversation that she had district administration in the palm of her hand. But there was something about the whole thing about being in government service which was troubling her. She was not distressed by the things the rest of us are distressed by, like political interference, not the greatest of collectors, our bosses, problems with the police, commissioner, problems with SP. She was distressed with the system. And so there was no surprise when not too long thereafter we heard that Aruna had met Banka, and that was a meeting of meetings. Shortly after that, we learned more about what Banka was doing, because if somebody has made Aruna leave the service, then that person has to be something. And by that time, we were back in Madras after a little posting outside. Bankar was coming to Madras, and my wife is a bird watcher. So she used to go in the mornings on a long field work and come back late in the afternoon. Bankar was visiting Madras, and I said, Tara, unfortunately, you're going to miss out on meeting Bankar. She said, why should I miss? I said, no, you never lose anything. You never cancel your bird watching for anything. No. If it is Bankar Roy, then No bird watching today. Bankar and Aruna remind me of remarkable couples who are one and one, not becoming indistinguishably the same. There was this Franklin and Eleanor, Kingsley Martin and Dorothy Woodman. In our own country, amazing examples. In my state, Jagannathan and Krishnamma Jagannathan, each distinct, but each in the same field. Sucheta and J.B. Kripalani. Sucheta was in the Congress. Kripalani ji was in the opposition, not in the opposition, but was literally the opposition spirit. They were themselves, and yet they were one. One last cameo about how a couple can be in the same journey but using different oars on the vessel. There is something called the Jamna Lal Bajaj Award. It's a big thing. Bankar Roy gets the Jamna Lal Bajaj Award. I am yours truly, then Secretary to the Vice President of India, who's giving the award. And as protocol arrangements are, the stage arrangement, the Bajaj family is there, several other functionaries. The Vice President comes, the Secretary to the Vice President sits 3 seats behind him on the stage, not to be seen by the audience, only to be within earshot of the Vice President. So if he turns this way, I'm there to give him the papers that he needs to be given to. And there is Bankar comes, he gets the award. And from the audience, there is heard this, अरुणा जी कहाँ है? अरुणा जी, अरुणा जी. अरुणा जी पीछे हैं, दूर बैठी हैं, refuses to get up. अरुणा जी, अरुणा जी. The Vice President tells me, our common eye with Tamil. என்ன சொல்றாரு? Wife இங்க வர சொல்ல சரி வரமாட்டாங்க. She won't come. They would not stop. A very reluctant Aruna Roy came up to the stage very reluctantly to receive the audience's applause and returned to her seat. Few occasions have moved me as much as that. Bankar, now a very difficult and important question. You've not had any doubts or questions or regrets about what you have chosen to do. Have you felt any disappointment in yourself, with yourself? Have you ever felt that you made it, gone wrong in what you are doing?
First, I'd like to set the record straight. When Aruna resigned, I was hauled up by Pimputkar.
Pimputkar being the director of the National Academy of Administration.
And also hauled up by T. Chaturvedi. He said, "Why are you making Aruna resign?" I said, "Sir, I've got no control over Mrs. Roy. If she wants to resign, I have nothing to do with this." So he said, "You better get her to take the resignation back." I said, "I'm sorry, it's impossible for me to do that." So it wasn't an easy task to convince the senior bureaucrats that I had nothing to do with her resignation. There was a time when we wanted to do something on women's empowerment. And I had some doubts whether the road I was taking was the right road or not. What we wanted to do was to take illiterate rural women, most of them grandmothers, who had come from non-electrified villages in India and abroad, and courtesy the Ministry of External Affairs, bring them to Telonia, to the Barefoot College, and through sign language, not the written or spoken word, train these grandmothers to be solar engineers. I had some doubts whether I was doing the right thing. Temporarily, I thought this would be too much of a big jump for lots of people, lots of governments, lots of bureaucrats, lots of diplomats. And we started from Afghanistan. And in Afghanistan, when I went to choose some grandmothers from Afghanistan, they said, "Are you mad? They won't even come out of the house and you want to take them to India." So I said, "I'll make an exception, I'll take the husbands as well." So 3 grandmothers, 3 husbands, landed up in Telonia, courtesy the Norwegian Church, to be trained as solar engineers. They became, in 6 months, they became solar engineers and went back and solar electrified the first village ever in Badakhshan in Afghanistan. We made a film on that. 3 women, 3 men flying down to India, training them for 6 months, taking 200 units back to Afghanistan, solar electrifying the first village. And we went to the UN and said, "Guess how much it cost?" And the UN couldn't even imagine what it would cost. I said, "It's the cost of one UN consultant sitting for 1 year in Kabul. And you have 700 consultants sitting in Kabul at that time, 2007. And there's not one village electrified in Afghanistan." That was our stepping stone. It really worked. It seemed to have made an impact. And then I went to the Ministry of External Affairs and said, "Empanel the Barefoot College to train more women." And in 2008, at that time it was Hardeep Singh Puri, who was the Secretary of Economic Relations. He said yes. As of now, today, there are 1,700 women solar engineers from 96 countries who have been in and out of the Barefoot College. They have solar electrified 60,000 houses. And together, if you put them together, the amount of power that they have generated is 1.4 gigawatts, which is about what a nuclear plant generates. Simple. Decentralize, demystify. Go down, right down to the village level and work yourself up. Simple common sense. Whenever you talk to the government about solar electrifying villages, they always go for solar power plants. Transmission lines. That doesn't work because the engineer is 60 kilometers away and just for one little diode or one little chip in the computer, it doesn't work. So we said every house must have a solar panel and they need light, they need fan, they need radio, and that's all they need. Today, we haven't been able to convince the government that this is the right approach. In spite of the fact that we get money from the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, we get money from the Ministry of External Affairs. And of course, when we talked about this, the Prime Minister, in one of his speeches to the African Union, called these grandmothers solar mamas. So solar mamas is stuck now. It's become a brand, the solar mamas of India. And the ministry asked us to bring the Solar Mamas to inaugurate the International Solar Alliance in 2018, where President Macron was there and the Prime Minister was there. And all these 38 Solar Mamas from Africa, Latin America, the Pacific, all sang "We Shall Overcome," "Hum Honge Kamyab" in Hindi and English, and it really went down very well. So President Macron said, "I want to see the Solar Mamas." And the Prime Minister says, "No, you got like this." He said, "No, I want to see the Solar Mamas." So we had to bring them back in to meet the President. And one woman, French-speaking, got up and said, "I'm from a very poor village in Ivory Coast. And I had no idea that someone would pick me up from this remote village in the Ivory Coast and bring me all the way to India. And for 6 months, I didn't speak the language. And for 6 months, I couldn't communicate. And yet, now I'm a solar engineer." All of a sudden, it hit this woman that she was speaking in front of the President of France. She went and hugged him. And the President was delighted. He wouldn't let go until, Frenchmen are like, until the woman let go, she wouldn't let go. So it became a great photo op for all of us. He turned to the Development Corporation man and said, "Every woman who's French-speaking will get a solar lantern from our Development Corporation when they come to India and become a solar engineer." That became a sort of a success story, and yet we haven't been able to convince the Ministry of External Affairs, because this is a great achievement for them, not for us. The fact that an illiterate woman from any part of the world can come and become a solar engineer. For them, they should take credit for it, but they don't. They can't. What is wrong with our people? What do you think, Gopal? What is wrong with our people? What do you feel? How do you feel this thing can work? Who should we speak to? Who can we speak to?
Bunker, since I have done nothing of which the 50th Jubilee can be celebrated, I have no answer to that question. But as you were talking, these thoughts came to me. That we should know this, we know it, but we should know it even more emphatically. That we are today in the presence of a person who has changed life for India and is doing it silently. Like the seasons do to the seeds, silently. But you are talking of the lights. And you have to forgive me when we have just 10 minutes more before everybody else joins, or 15 minutes more before everyone joins the conversation. But since I have the mic, you have the risk. When you spoke darkness and light, there's another Hindi film that I got suddenly reminded of much earlier than The Guide. Does anyone in this hall remember a film called Subah Ka Tara? Very old. My God, I really am whatever I am. It's a brilliant film called Subah Ka Tara. It has this song. Gaya andhera, hua ujara. Gaya andhera, hua ujara. Chamka chamka. Subah Ka Tara. And that is connected to, you all know this nursery rhyme. Oh my God, twinkle, twinkle, little star. And you ask any child, twinkle, twinkle, little star, what do you know? You know the big line in the twinkle, twinkle, like a diamond in the sky. That is the most banal line in the entire nursery. The biggest message of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And it's not a simple nursery rhyme. It's written by Jane Taylor, who died early 30s of cancer. In that, the most important line is, when the blazing sun is gone, when nothing shines upon, then you show your little light, twinkle, twinkle in the night. That is the light of the little star that you have helped light up dark skies, as we now see, not just in India, but even in the Ivory Coast. We are we are amidst a person who has made the world a better place. That is what it is. Hearing you, Bankar, is not only instructive and inspiring, it is deeply moving for this reason. What you say is so like it is. So I don't like to use this word true and truth and all that. It becomes like some kind of excerpt from a book. You say it as it is. I asked you this question and I'm not going to repeat it and press you to answer it. But I'll ask a related question, which is, in all that you have done, flows one consistent stream, and that is education. There is something that you are teaching. Not sitting down under a tree and saying, I'm now starting a university. But there is a kind of life-related pedagogy that is happening. And this comes from a different ink from what has gone into the books that you have read. And incidentally, Bankar is a student of English literature, which explains the cleanness of his diction. This is by the way. There is this line of pedagogy of teaching, which is life-centered. I want you to share with us in a few minutes, what is your view of education? What does education mean?
In 2002, Gopal, the barefoot architects of Telonia, illiterate masons and people who built the Barefoot College in 2002, got the Aga Khan Award for Architecture. But you know who were the ones who actually protested? The architects of India. They wrote a letter to the Aga Khan saying, how can you give these 12 illiterate architects who built the college at $1.58 a square foot, the Aga Khan Award. So I returned the $50,000 and I returned the citation. Made me think, is education to do something with certification? Do we need to get a certification at the end of what we call an educational process? If a barefoot solar mama can solar electrify a village in front of the whole community and leave everyone at all, because she goes as a grandmother and comes back like a tiger, does she need a certificate on the wall to say that she's an engineer? If I can, we have a school called the Shiksha Niketan in Tilonia. It started in 1975, I think. 90,000 students have gone through that Shiksha Niketan. And almost all of them have very basic education, basic. Almost all of them have become anadars, gram sevaks. The other day, where was that man? He was from the police, I think, when Aruna went to the Chennai airport and this man made her jump the queue and go in front. And she said, "What are you doing this for?" She said, "I went to Shiksha Niketan in Rajasthan." Stories like this you hear. They never went to college, they never went to university. Heart of India, heart of Bharat, heart of people. Education is much more than the four walls of a room with a teacher. I think education for life is much more important for me. And education involves compassion, patience, tolerance, humanity. We don't teach that. Do you get a degree in compassion? Is there a course in compassion today? In any university? No. Are you or not? And I think this is something for us is much more valued, much more important for us. The humanity behind the person, the generosity, the charity, all that is much more important than someone who has a degree and qualification. Today, unfortunately, some of them are unemployable. They carry a degree, flaunt their degree, get double PhD. They're not worth it. They don't have that compassion. They don't have that. We have some youngsters coming, working in Barefoot College, very young. The biggest problems are the parents. Parents want them to come back. What are you doing in a village? Why aren't you getting a good job? Car, dog, nice house. And they are resisting. God, great for them, they're resisting all the way. Parents want them, you got a good education, what are you doing in the middle of a village training grandmothers? So I think the perception has to change. I don't know how we can do that. The perception of what we call education has to change. There's a problem here, fundamental problem.
Here, Bankar, I may be anticipating a question that might come from the audience. The whole participants are going to join us. But have you been put this question as a dilemma or as a challenge that this form of education, which deepens, heightens traditional skills using artisanal expertise, not condemning the concerned people to the same status quo, should they not be graduating out of all this into something which will make them denizens of a different world? Are you, in other words, perpetuating a kind of Ruritania? Have you been asked this question? And if so, what is your response?
No, I haven't been asked this question, but after 50 years of working in Tilonia, I am totally convinced that there's no rural solution to an urban problem, no urban solution to a rural problem. There are thousands of years people have come up with rural solutions, which are just not recognized, not respected. And I think that is something that we have to bring back into mainstream. I'll give you an example. If you ask an engineer, how do you solve the problems of water? They will say, dig a hand pump, dig a bore well, take water out from 300 feet. Ask the old man in the village, what did you do for water? Rainwater harvest. Why aren't you collecting rainwater? We've been doing it for thousands of years, why aren't we doing that? I went to an engineer in Rajasthan and I said, there is this 300-year-old wall in a band which is cracked and broken. Can we do this up again? Because the location is perfect to collect water. So it can't be done, sir. It's too difficult. You have to make a new one. I said, why can't you do the old? No. So we did it. Now there's 1 billion liters of water there, collecting. Within a radius of 10 kilometers, over 300 hand pumps which are dry have got water. Over wells which are dry have got water. Just a simple location of a tank can achieve miracles. But we haven't been able to use our common sense. In Sikkim, I went to the chief minister at that time, Chamlin, and I said, you have a problem of pumping water from the what is the Tista? Is it the Tista Valley, right up to the mountains, and then having a big water scheme, World Bank scheme of hundreds of crores and bringing the water down. I said, why aren't you doing rainwater harvesting? He said, I think of course he said, are you a Bengali? I said, yes, I'm a Bengali. He's mad chap. Can't be done. I said, do you mind if I do it? He said, yeah, do it, but don't ask me for money. So we dig a 160,000 litre tank in the middle of our center in Sikkim. And then I asked Chamlin to come, please inaugurate. He said, you've done it. And it's also full of 160,000 litres of rainwater has been. So he said, I'll bring my chief engineer along. Brought the chief engineer along. And Chamlin turned to me and said, Sahab, aapne dekhiye kya kaha? Aapne kaha ho nahi sakta. And you know what he said? He said, Sahab, it was not in my curriculum. Common sense. Collect rainwater where it falls. Today we are collecting 90 billion litres of rainwater. If it falls, when it falls, should it fall. All rainwater harvesting. That is the answer today. You see the buildings today, not one is collecting rainwater. Because you get water from the municipality. Why aren't you collecting rainwater? None of the buildings have rainwater harvesting structures. You can use that water for your toilet. Why are you using clean, safe water for your toilets? Mindset problem. How do we get rid of that mindset problem? Common sense. Big casualty. Biggest casualty, common sense.
If I was a newspaper reporter in this audience, this would be the main headline. Biggest casualty, common sense, bunker on. But we have seen the most extraordinary specimens of handcrafted art, which Kamaladevi Chattopadhyay used to say shows that there is no beauty that is without some utility. Not that beauty has to have a utility, but it serves a purpose which we can't describe in fulfilling one's life. We have these specimens here. Telonia is today a synonym of artisanal craft. And I'll conclude my part of this evening by narrating a small experience in Kalakshetra, where the Emperor and Empress of Japan were coming. They were coming to Chennai. I don't quite know why they chose Chennai. They chose Chennai. And when they were coming to Chennai, I don't quite know why they chose Kalakshetra. It has to be because it has such a huge reputation. Rukmani Devi Arundel, Leela Sands, Kalakshetra. So they come. I was associated with Kalakshetra at that time. So we're receiving the Emperor and Empress, and my God, the Japanese consulate, they are so unbelievable. They said, don't have to do anything much. We will do what... They set up a small little corner without bringing in any instruments. So this is where the majesties will sit and remove the footwear, because you have to remove your footwear when you come into the altar. So they came, and as they were coming in, the empress, they are now senior emperor and empress, now his son is now the but empress stood there, Ichiko. There was a column that had been drawn on the ground. She has not yet entered the hall where the great dance is going to be shown. Absolutely fascinated by it. It was a great piece of art. Is this done by many people? No, Your Majesty, there's one artist has done this. Artist. There was no artist. It was a lady called Tangamani Akka, who was a long-term employee of Gopalkrishna. So I would like to see it. The last, we thought of so many contingencies, we did not thought of having Tangamani Akka there. But Tangamani Akka comes and they have this amazing voiceless conversation. Rukmini Devi has founded Gopalkrishna. Great teachers have taught art teaching students in Gopalkrishna. But for Empress Michiko, Gopalkrishna was Tangamani Akka's column on the ground. She is not a teacher, but she has taught. Bankar, I thank you for our conversation. It has been a moving experience for me, meeting you after so many years. And now I should not be greedy, for your presence here belongs to this gathering. Now please advise me, ladies and gentlemen, is a mic going to go around?
Yes, there is a mic in that corner.
Should I?
No, please.
So, are the mics mobile? Are they ready to go down? Should we wait for a minute? So the person will come here? Okay, so the arrangement is that whoever wishes to make a comment or a question comes to the mic. You are the first? Yes. So I will depart from common practice and say, you do not have to introduce yourself. No need. If you wish to, you may. If you don't wish to, you need not. Your question to Bankar.
Sir, what is privilege according to you?
Privilege. Never thought of it. Do you want me to think about privilege?
No, I'm just curious to know what is your idea of privilege. I'm very moved right now and अगर आप कुछ बता सकें.
Privilege. I've had the privilege of working with very ordinary people, and they have taught me so much. I've had the privilege of working with extraordinary women who've never been to school and college, and they have taught me so much. I've had this extraordinary privilege of being a part of an organization which consists of these people who have made Bologna what it is today.
Thank you.
So I would suggest that those who intend to put questions or make a comment could gradually move towards the mic so that there is no gap between the questions.
Or even if they don't want to use the mic and sit up, they just have to speak a bit louder.
Bankar, compliments to you. Your hearing is so good. Mine is not.
Hello. So one thing that struck a lot from what you said was the common sense is a casualty. I keep feeling the same, especially even at home and things around with my husband and things around. So one thing that I keep grumbling, saying that most of the problems that are around, like if people use common sense, maybe we could even solve them. But where have we lost it? So one thing that I would want to know from your journey and experiences, what are certain things that still keep you motivated when certain problems, where visible solutions are there but are still pulled down? What keeps you motivated, and how did your journey come along?
Can you imagine a woman who's never been outside her country, always been in a village? Can you imagine her sitting in a plane for 19 hours, coming into a country? Can you imagine she, for 6 months, can't speak her language? Can you imagine someone who's sitting with 40 other women, they're all talking to each other but not understanding a word, because they're all speaking French and Swahili and Jola? And can you imagine her getting up and going back home and solar electrifying the village? That is extraordinary. That keeps me, and I see it in front of my eyes. I see a nobody becoming an extraordinary brave woman who's a change agent, who's a role model for everybody. The woman from Afghanistan went and solar electrified the whole village and went and sat with the men. And the men said, "What do you think you're doing? You should be sitting with those women there 1 kilometer away." And she said, "Today, I'm not a woman, I'm an engineer. And I have every right to be an engineer, to sit with you." That requires courage, guts, extraordinary guts. So many stories of these people who have gone in spite of the husband. I've been to Africa, and I went in the whole community. We selected the solar mama, and the husband very reluctantly said, "Yes, you can go, but I'll get another woman. I can't wait for 6 months. I'll get another wife." In spite of that, she comes to India, solar electrifies the village, goes back, and the husband is in total awe, doesn't understand what this solar mama has done. And then the husband says, "Please come back." And the woman says, "No, thank you very much. I don't need you anymore." In 6 months, look what you've done to the woman. And you see it within your lifetime, changes that happen. That's really courage. That for me keeps me going.
Thank you.
Hello, Pankaj. It's my privilege, we talked about it, to have worked with the great man Bankar Roy for almost 2 years. As an Ajmer, Bankar had come to Ajmer as studying in college, we were in the same campus. So let me just tell you a few things which you haven't mentioned. Okay, Bankar had this unlimited energy. You have no idea where he drew the energy from. He never got tired. Infectious, as you said, we both went down the wells and put dynamites, and sometimes the dynamites burst, till the danger. And it was a privilege for me and the people around me here on the campus. He'd studied English literature, I was doing that, and what he taught a lot of us was education outside the classroom. What you're talking about. He spoke to us. We played a lot of tennis together. We played a lot of squash together. By the way, he'd just come back from Australia and he'd beaten the world number 4, Ken Nancaro. Right, Bankar? I remember that. So can you imagine having a person who's beaten the world number 4 in squash at that time? And Bankar never mentioned any of his achievements wherever he'd been, school, college, June school, I was in Mayo, we played. So what I want to say is how he drew that kind of energy. He never got tired. He never got hungry, for that matter. And he worked morning till night. So Bankar, it would be very nice for us to know how you drew so much energy to bring, so much knowledge to people around you, joy around you, all of us. And, it was a privilege to just have been with him for 1 year.
Hello, respected dignitaries. I am a student of journalism and I just have a question. You talked about women empowerment, right? And I just wanted to know what exactly is women empowerment, because whenever we talk about it, there is always the binary of men and there is always men in the equation. Will it ever be isolated from that binary? Will women ever achieve that empowerment that we always talk about?
When you give a woman who is got no hope because she thinks that she is just there to produce kids and look after the kitchen, and you take her out of that habitat and you give her a skill which the men think you cannot have and you cannot even get that skill because they've already ruled out the woman as someone who can pick up these skills. And when you see her with that skill and showing it, I think that is empowerment. When I went to these villages in Africa, I've been to 36 countries in Africa, wherever we've gone. And we, in the whole village community, we say, we will take this woman to India. Are you, the youth of this country, youth of this village, are you prepared to be trained by your grandmother as a solar engineer? They were horrified. They said, no. I can't be trained by your grandmother. What are you talking about? And she comes back and solar electrifies our own village. All the youth want to come and be trained by her. Even the young girls for the first time think that you don't have to go through a formal education to become an engineer. You don't have to go through a formal education to become an architect, to be a dentist, to be a communicator, to be a designer, to be an engineer, you don't have to be. You just have to have common sense and you have to have that vision to be able to see that it's possible for them to do that. The moment they feel that you don't think it is possible for them to do it, they can feel it. But if you show them that you are all the way behind them, all the way, and you can't fail, there's no question of failing, then they make it. I have had 1,700 solar engineers, not one has gone back saying, I can't do it. And they all come from very backward, inaccessible villages today. It's absolutely extraordinary what empowerment can do to these women today.
I have a follow-up question. Will it, you said, will it always be about we proving ourselves? Is that how it's going to be? If I say I'm empowered, do I always have to prove myself that yes, I do know this?
You have to prove
I'm saying that proof, me trying to prove again is still not giving me that empowerment, right? I'm still having to prove myself.
I'm talking about a rural condition and not an urban condition.
Yes, sir, but still, I feel like I'm just asking, nothing.
No, you're asking the right question. But if you find in a rural area a woman who's got a skill which is actually identified only with men, it's extraordinary. We had a woman called Northi who was exhausted street fighting, dharnas. And she came to me and said, I'm totally exhausted. What should I do? I said, you sit on a computer. She said, what do you mean? I'm illiterate. Would you mind not sitting on a computer? I said, you sit on a computer, take your time. 6 months later, she comes and says, I've learned. I can take out a spreadsheet. Illiterate woman. She went on to become the Sarpanch of that village. And she went on to put all the information on Narega and all on the computer. Illiterate, proud of it. That's empowerment. Everyone gets scared of her. How can she, illiterate woman, do this computer thing? What is it? What's special is that it's giving them an opportunity and giving them the time to develop themselves. Don't be in a hurry. Don't be in... They will make it. They will do it as long as you give them the support from the back. Come and see it. Come to Tilonia. Are you going to... Is that a promise?
Yes, I will. I'm eager. I'm convinced in the answer. Thank you.
One of the greatest ironies of the 21st century is this Mission Pani, since you have mentioned so much about Pani, and also the smart city, which between the two of them have left us with more flooding and no water to drink. I know it's a very sort of politically loaded question. Would you care to make a remark on that? The Mission Pani and, the smart city project, which doesn't seem to have got us anywhere.
The mandate of the Barefoot College is working in rural areas. And we are not interested in what happens in urban cities because I think you've already done such a bad job, wherever you are. But we're not here to solve that problem. But we are interested in making sure that the water from the villages don't go into the municipalities without you asking the farmers whether the wells are 100 feet deep, you're putting in a tube well 300 feet and taking the water out of the ground, and most of the wells going dry. So now people are asking, you can't do these things. You can't do these things without permission. Take the water out of the ground and give it to a nearby city when all our wells are going dry. So there is a movement in trying to make sure that those tube wells don't get done in rural areas. But this is a battle.
Listening to you speak, it seems like if you were doing the same things now here in these times, you would surely have been arrested, not encouraged by the likes of the collector. Perhaps both of you would have been arrested. But I'd like to ask the question you framed to Mr. Gandhi back to you. What is wrong with our people? And given the inspiring lives that both of you have led, how do we take that inspiration and bring it, where is the line from there to now, what we see now?
When we first started working in villages in the 1970s, there was a lot of vision, a lot of passion, a lot of imagination, a lot of sacrifice that was happening. And all along in the 70s, we had many, many young people who did exactly what I was doing. It's just that I survived 50 years. Most of them didn't stay on till 50 years, but they did go into the villages. They did go and work in the villages. But today, I think the youth have lost courage. Someone says, what should I do? I said, you get onto a train, go 50 kilometers anywhere from where you are, get off that train, and see if you can survive for 1 year. No money, no prospects. Just see if you have the staying power to do that. Very few people do that. What does it take 1 year of your life to see whether you have it in you or not? At least you know you have it or you don't have it. But even that they're not prepared to do. That's the tragedy today of the youth today. You just don't have that will to be able to try it. Let's see. Even if you haven't worked it out, and even if you say you can't stand it, you want to go back, at least you give it a shot. Today you're not even giving it a shot. Today I find this is the biggest tragedy of the youth in the universities. When you don't know what to do, you do a double degree. You don't do, you get a PhD. You do 3 PhDs and then you're unemployable. Because you are scared to do something You're scared to do something which might not work out. But so what? So what if it doesn't work out? This is the time to make mistakes. This is the time when you do something which doesn't work out, so what? But we don't have that. We don't have it in us. And I keep wondering why. And I think it's the parents' fault. They've just taken that courage away. I blame the parents. We have young people working in Telonia. The biggest problems are the parents. Biggest. What do we do? What can you do? Oh, thank you. I was asking for that.
While another question is germinating, I want to ask a flippant question. Or rather, I should say, I want to say some more flippant things. Bankar, did you ever do a course in public speaking? There is not once in this entire conversation that you have said, I mean to say, you have spoken ready to print English. Did you do a course in public speaking?
In 2011, Gopal, they called me to Edinburgh to give a TED talk. And Chris, who owns TED, and Bruno, who is the director of the program, said, I'm sorry, you have to do some trial runs. We have to see how you speak. We have to see, you have to give us some training sessions to see whether you're worth going up to that podium. I said, Chris, I'm so sorry. There's no way that I can do it twice. You want to hear me out, you'll only hear me the first time. Second and third time, I just can't do it, I can't manage. They said, you will be a disaster. I said, I'm so sorry, it will be a disaster. But I didn't do badly. Yes, I got notoriety because I had more hits than Bill Gates, so I said. I know.
Further questions and comments?
Where are you? You're in the dark. Come out in the light. I can't still see you. Now we are. Thank you.
So you spoke about education being a life skill, teaching life skill that is beyond. Okay. So you spoke about education being about teaching a life skill that is beyond certification, and the institutions like Shiksha Niketan are deeply appreciated. Acknowledging that fact, it remains the truth that the major portion of the education system remains formalized, that is based on certifications, and that is not essentially based on life skills. So, sir, during your journey, have you ever contemplated about entering the existing educational ecosystem, in the sense tying up with existing schools to take certain classes, to teach certain skills to students? Have you ever contemplated that? If you have, may I please know the journey and the thought process?
They would not understand a word of what I say. I think the answer is that you have to have an alternative that people can contrast. The formal education is very boring. You have to have a contrast to what the formal education is doing. And Telonia is offering a contrast. That's all. Now it's left to you to make your choice. Is this the right way to do it or not? But make it and stick with it. That is our problem today. We don't stick with it. If you think the choice that Telonia is providing and the choice the formal education is providing, and you weigh both the pros and cons, and you say, this is the way I want to do it, go for it. But don't, Pratap Singh Kairav, who was the architect of Punjab, he was going down to Chandigarh very fast. He saw a dog halfway on the road, changed his mind, came back, got run over. Kairav thought for a minute and said, that's the problem with India. We go halfway and then want to come back. Go all the way. What's to stop you from going all the way? What? Tell me, you're a young boy, you're a young girl. Tell me, what do you think stops us? What is it that stops you from doing something out of the ordinary?
I think it's the challenges that are being posed or the expectations. I think, as you answered the previous question, the courage.
So what's wrong with the young people? Where's the courage gone? What do you think? Tell me, you're the young person, you're the young generation today. Where is it gone? Why aren't people doing something unusual, something out of the box? John Kennedy said, some people see things as they are. I dream of things that never were and ask, why not? Why not? What's wrong with us? You have to answer it yourself because no one is going to help you. You have to make the right choice yourself. Have I made you something to think about?
Yes, you have. But I was just wondering that how many people can actually come to, or how many people they have the choice of coming to Telonia.
You have the choice to go anywhere other than Telonia. Because there are many, many people doing almost the same extraordinary things that Telonia is doing. We have just survived 50 years. I didn't even think 50 years have gone past. But there are many, many people who are doing innovative work which you need something nearby. Where is where is our Ladakhi lady? There you are. Come on, get up. What are you doing which is extraordinary? She wants to hear.
So, can I have the mic?
They were very young and I sent them all to Ladakh. They're still recovering.
So, hi Bankar.
Hi.
So, I'm meeting Bankar after Ladakh. Very little.
Which was that, 80s?
88, 89?
Yeah.
So,
What did I do to you?
So first of all, Bankar sent us on so we were a group of friends who wanted to work in rural areas. We were very concerned about what was happening in the country, and we felt that as urban youth, we had to go where nobody would go. So I had a group of 10 fantastic friends. We're still together, and we work in an organization called Samaj Pragati Sahyog. But why I'm here today is because I couldn't stop myself from coming and seeing Bankar, who gave us our first opportunities and sent us all the way to Ladakh, to places which is now beyond the line of control, right? We've been to the Indus Valley, setting up solar panels, if you please, which we knew nothing about. But because he trusted us, we trusted ourselves, and he would ensure that, we had some support, and we went into villages. And since then, we've set up an organization which has now existed for 30 years, the same 10 friends, and we all came from backgrounds like yours, like Bankar's, and that's it. He's been the inspiration. I think Telonia has set off so many organizations. We may not have done the same things as Telonia, but we definitely found the will and the strength and an example, to follow. So, thank you.
Good evening. I think I don't have a question because I have far too many questions to ask. There's no time. I just want to make an observation because Gopal has still left out the Bible. And I want to quote something from the Bible. And I want to also ask a question. See, there is a famous parable in the Bible. When you light a lamp, you got to put it on the stand. High stand so everybody can see. You can't put it under the bed or under a bushel. Looks like the Telonia experiment is so rich and so diverse. You have not put it on a stand. even me, I mean, lifelong, I mean, I've been, Aruna and we have been friends for the last 40 years, Gopal also. But even I have learned almost everything today. I've heard about it, I've read about it, I've researched about it. But the depth of what you have been doing and the relevance of what you are doing for this wretched country, I'm sorry to say that. It is a wretched country even now. And I don't want to go beyond that. Why this experiment of yours, when you are talking about solar, we have been working on, we have a group where we discuss about the policies of the government, what is happening. You talked about solar villages, solar, decentralized energy transition. I have some kind of knowledge about the energy sector. But what is happening is totally opposite. Centralizing everything, a decentralized, completely distributed power source, original power source, primary power source. They are centralizing it and putting it back into the same rot, which we had destroyed India's electricity sector. They are openly doing it because they want to give it to a couple of oligarchs. So your model that you have developed, which really reaches solar to each and every nook and corner, is hardly known to anybody. Of course, I have some vague knowledge. But why is it that, as what Gopal said, humble? You are appearing to be more than humble, 3-4 times humble. What you have done, you and Aruna have achieved. Why don't you really put it up and let the whole world know what has been happening, what has happened, and what has been the plus, what are the minus points, how we can take it forward. Because I'll tell you why I am asking this question. I belong to Kanyakumari, the district, Kanyakumari, the last part of the. We tried to work out on a decentralized development alternative. Decentralized, resource-based, totally decentralized, in order to create employment opportunities everywhere. We are not getting anywhere. Nobody is wanting to understand the model. Everything is beautiful, big factories, big airports, big seaports, big companies. That is development. So a counter narrative has not come, and I am sure you are the best person to really give a counter narrative, and the time is now. I thought I will make this observation.
Can I reply?
Yeah, please.
I'm one totally against too much publicity. Because the moment you get too much in the news, there are hundreds of people wanting to bring you down. Lots and lots of people. You might have a positive story, but there are people in this country who want to make sure that doesn't work. And there are many people like that. So we have kept a low profile for 50 years. It's not that we haven't been known. It's not that people haven't read about it, heard about it, made films about it. There are over 50 films on the Barefoot College and over 200 articles written on the Barefoot College. But it's discreet, it's low profile, and people who want to hear about it, read about it. I don't want to go into a spree where we talk about Tilonia and the Tilonia model and the Barefoot model more than we should. So if someone tells me, Barefoot, where the hell is that? I love that. You never heard of Tilonia? Great. If you want to hear, come down. If you want to, we can tell you how to come down and see. But if you want to read about it, you have to struggle. But I think Google has exposed us too much already. If you just Google Solar Mamas or Barefoot College, it's all there. It's all there. It doesn't. So I think we are exposed enough. I'm not unhappy with the way. In 1974, I said we invited young boys and girls to come to Tilonia and spend 6 months with us. Some people spent 6 months, some people went a year, just to gain some confidence, just to see what not to do, not be a bunker Roy, just to see what it's like to be able to start an organization. So today there are 23 organizations in 13 states of India, started by these young boys and girls, but the condition was You can't use Barefoot College, that's a brand. Use its other name. You have to have a different board of governors. I can't be on the board. You have to raise your own money. These are sort of do's and don'ts. These are non-negotiables. And I think these 23 organizations have now blossomed. Just the other day, out of the 23, 3 have just got the Jamnal Al-Bajaj Award. Not bad. They've done their bit without confusing the identity of the Barefoot College and having their own identity. Having their own identity is so important, no? It shouldn't be linked to Bunker Roy. Who the hell is Bunker Roy? You have to have your own identity and make it work. And I think that has happened. That's worked. So slowly, I think we're on the right track. Too much publicity, not good.
Good evening, sir. Sorry, I'm at the top.
Where? Oh, there you are. Okay.
I would my view, which probably could be amateur, about women empowerment in the governance framework is that there's a lot of focus on creating supply, on the supply side of women empowerment by creating more skill development programs, like for example in Manrega, there's more focus on equal wages and childcare services. However, there's very less focus on demand side of things, where some programs like Kudumbashri in Kerala focus on getting women on board. But from my perception, there's been a lot of contention among recruiters about only recruiting women for certain positions. Over these 50 years, have you faced such a problem where you've done a lot of skill development programs but haven't really found the right avenue to send the women for? And if that's happened, then how have you countered it?
I think Gopal, you have to go. 42.
Respond to this and then.
Telonia has always emphasized on recruiting rural women in most of the activities that we are involved in. So there are barefoot women teachers, there are barefoot masons, there are barefoot dentists, there are barefoot communicators. The emphasis is on rural women all the time. And we give much more importance and priority to women, physically challenged, and people from scheduled caste tribe communities. That for us is a major priority. So if some higher caste is neglected because he doesn't get the position, I don't mind.
We are now nearing the end of our conversation. If there's any question which remains or comment remains to be made, this is the time.
Sorry, say it again, madam.
The today's youth, they're getting too many privileges. That's why not coming out and doing things like you do. They don't have the guts and they don't have the strength, moral strength, because the children are getting all the privileges from the parents. And they don't have the guts to go out and do it.
So you're right, so you agree with me, the parents are at fault.
Yes. That's what I feel. You get too many privileges, you don't want to do anything. We find children who are coming from a very poor family, they want to do something in their life. They come out, they come and ask for help. But the rich people's children, they don't want to do anything. That's the problem. How to get these people to come out and do something for the society? How do we do that?
Inshallah.
So I'll have the privilege of saying something towards the end to which Bankar may respond if he wishes to, not if he doesn't wish to. And this is this, that supposing Bankar, I did not know you from before, I did not know Telonia, and I was meeting you for the first time in some neutral place. looking at you, I would say, you look like my age. Are you a retired professor of philosophy? Bankar, you have done work which is rightly called barefoot. But in your bearing, in your intellectual and verbal, to use a quote expression, your manner, you're the most aristocratic person I know.
Went to the wrong school in college. And you never retire. Civil society people never retire. That's the advantage. You do your best work when you're 60, 70. Sorry? No, there's no disadvantage.
I'll just say with Devasahayam present here, particularly in mind, 1977 was a great year. Bankar is 77 now, and hail Bankar.